Olivia Bennett stood outside the glass doors of Northbridge Capital, watching the morning sun reflect off the building's steel facade. 28 years old, armed with a business degree and 5 years of experience managing high-pressure executives, she should have felt confident. Instead, her stomach twisted with nerves. The recruitment agency had warned her about Sebastian Hunt, 12 assistants in 14 months. The numbers alone told a story of impossible standards and zero tolerance for anything less than perfection. But Olivia needed this job desperately. Her father's experimental cancer treatment was not covered by insurance, and the medical bills were drowning her family. The salary at Northbridge Capital was double what she made at her previous position. She could not afford to walk away from this opportunity, no matter how difficult the boss might be. First impressions cut deep. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt endless. When the doors finally opened, Olivia stepped into a world of polished marble and modern minimalism. Everything was sharp angles and cold surfaces, from the chrome furniture to the abstract art hanging on the walls. A receptionist with perfectly styled blonde hair looked up from her desk. "You must be Miss Bennett. Mr. Hunt is waiting in his office. Third door on the left. Good luck." The way she said those last two words made Olivia's anxiety spike. She walked down the corridor, her heels clicking against the floor, and found Sebastian Hunt standing by his window, looking out over the city. He did not turn around when she entered. "You are late." His voice was smooth but carried an edge that could cut glass. Olivia glanced at her watch. "I am 3 minutes early, Mr. Hunt." "Then you should have been here 10 minutes early." He finally turned to face her, and Olivia felt the full force of his presence. Sebastian Hunt was tall, with dark hair styled impeccably, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His eyes were a striking shade of blue, cold, and assessing. He studied her like she was a balance sheet that did not quite add up. "Sit down. We have work to do." There was no small talk, no welcome, no explanation of company culture. Sebastian handed her a tablet with a list of tasks that would have taken 3 people a full day to complete. He expected it done by 5 in the evening. When Olivia opened her mouth to ask a question, he held up one hand. "Figure it out. That is what I pay you for." Surviving the storm the first week nearly broke her. Sebastian Hunt demanded perfection in everything. Every email had to be worded precisely. Every meeting scheduled to the minute. Every document formatted exactly to his specifications, which he never bothered to explain clearly. When Olivia made mistakes, and she made several in those early days, his criticism was swift and cutting. "This is unacceptable. Do it again." That was his favorite phrase. Do it again. No explanation of what was wrong. No guidance on how to improve. Just cold dismissal and the expectation that she would somehow read his mind and deliver exactly what he wanted. Olivia worked 14-hour days. She skipped lunch, survived on coffee, and took work home every night. Her desk was positioned directly outside Sebastian's glass-walled office, which meant he could watch her constantly. She felt his eyes on her throughout the day, monitoring her every move, waiting for her to fail. But Olivia refused to quit. She studied his past emails to understand his communication style. She memorized his preferences. She arrived at 6:30 every morning to prepare for the day ahead. Slowly, painfully, she began to anticipate what he needed before he asked for it. The first crack in the ice 3 weeks into the job. Olivia was working late on a presentation for an important client meeting. Sebastian had rejected her first 2 attempts without explanation. It was past 9 in the evening, and the office was empty, except for the 2 of them. She was so focused on the screen that she did not notice Sebastian standing behind her until he spoke. "The graphics are too cluttered. Simplify them." Olivia jumped, startled by his sudden presence. She turned to find him looking at her screen, his expression unreadable. For the first time, he actually explained what he wanted, instead of just dismissing her work. They spent the next hour refining the presentation together. Sebastian's standards were impossibly high, but Olivia began to understand the method behind his demands. He was not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He simply refused to accept anything less than excellence when they finally finished. Sebastian studied the final version and gave a small nod. This will work. It was not praise exactly, but coming from him, it felt like a victory. As Olivia gathered her things to leave, Sebastian spoke again without looking at her. You are still here. The others would have quit by now, I told you during the interview. I do not quit. He turned to face her then, and for just a moment, something shifted in his expression. The ice in his eyes thawed slightly, revealing something else underneath. Curiosity, perhaps. Or respect. Go home, Miss Bennett. Be back at 7. The routine takes shape. The following weeks established a rhythm. Olivia arrived early, stayed late, and managed Sebastian's impossible schedule with increasing efficiency. She learned to anticipate his moods, to know when he needed information immediately and when he needed space to think. She became indispensable, though he would never say it out loud. But Sebastian remained distant. He never asked about her life outside work, never made casual conversation. Their interactions were purely professional, focused entirely on tasks and deadlines. Olivia told herself it did not matter. This was just a job, a means to pay her father's medical bills. She did not need her boss to be warm or friendly, yet sometimes, when she caught Sebastian watching her through his office window, she wondered what he was thinking. His expression in those unguarded moments was complicated, layers of emotion that he quickly buried whenever their eyes met. Olivia found herself curious about the man behind the cold exterior, which was dangerous. Getting emotionally involved with Sebastian Hunt would be a disaster. Then Cameron Walsh walked into her life, and everything became infinitely more complicated. Cameron Walsh had a reputation at Northbridge Capital for being the opposite of Sebastian Hunt in every way that mattered. While Sebastian was cold and demanding, Cameron was warm and approachable. Where Sebastian barely acknowledged the staff, Cameron knew everyone by name and always had a friendly word. He had joined the company 6 months ago as Chief Operations Officer, and in that short time, he had become one of the most liked executives in the building. Olivia first really noticed him on a Friday afternoon. In her second month at the company, she was juggling 3 phone calls simultaneously while trying to prepare documents for a board meeting when her computer suddenly froze. Panic shot through her as she realized she might lose an hour of work. Sebastian would be furious if the materials were not ready on time. Need some help with that? Cameron appeared at her desk, his easy smile somehow calming her racing heart. I used to work in tech support during college. Let me take a look. Before Olivia could protest, he was already examining her computer. Within minutes, he had recovered her files and fixed the problem. She stared at him in amazement, relief flooding through her. Thank you so much. You just saved my life, Cameron laughed. A genuine sound that seemed foreign in the usually tense atmosphere of the executive floor. Happy to help. I am Cameron Walsh, by the way. I know we have passed each other in meetings, but I do not think we have been properly introduced. Olivia Bennett. And seriously, thank you. I owe you one. I will hold you to that. Maybe you can grab coffee with me sometime when your boss gives you a break. His tone was light, but there was genuine interest in his eyes. From his office, Sebastian looked up from his computer, his gaze fixed on Cameron standing at Olivia's desk, and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The lunches begin, Cameron started finding reasons to stop by Olivia's desk. Sometimes it was a legitimate work question. Other times he brought her coffee or simply checked in to see how her day was going. His attention was flattering, especially in contrast to Sebastian's continued coldness. While her boss barely acknowledged her existence beyond work tasks, Cameron treated her like a person worth knowing. 3 weeks after the computer incident, Cameron appeared at her desk during lunch with 2 sandwiches from the deli across the street. I noticed you never take a proper lunch break. Thought you might appreciate something better than vending machine snacks. Olivia hesitated. She usually ate at her desk so she could keep working. Sebastian expected her to be available at all times, but Cameron's smile was so genuine and she was tired of eating alone. That is really thoughtful. Thank you. They ate together in the small break room, away from Sebastian's watchful gaze. Cameron told her about his previous job in San Francisco, about the hiking trails he missed from the West Coast, about his attempts to find decent coffee in New York that matched what he was used to back home. He asked about her too and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. So what brought you to Northbridge Capital? Cameron asked. I heard Hunt goes through assistance like most people go through coffee. You must be pretty tough to have lasted this long. Olivia chose her words carefully. The job pays well, and I needed the salary increase. My father is sick, and the medical bills are substantial. Cameron's expression softened with sympathy. I am sorry to hear that. That must be incredibly stressful, especially on top of working for someone like Hunt. He manages his stress by making everyone around him stressed too, Olivia said, then immediately regretted it. She should not be talking about her boss like this, even if it was true, but Cameron just laughed. That is the most diplomatic way I have ever heard someone call their boss difficult. Your loyalty is admirable. Most people would have quit by now. I do not quit easily, I noticed. It is one of the things I admire about you. The way he said it made Olivia's cheeks warm. She glanced at the clock and realized her lunch break had stretched to 40 minutes. Sebastian would notice. I should get back to my desk, of course. But Olivia, I would really like to take you to dinner sometime. Somewhere nice, where we can actually talk without worrying about work. Would you be interested? Olivia opened her mouth to respond, but movement caught her eye. Through the break room's glass door, she could see Sebastian standing in the hallway, looking directly at them. His expression was unreadable, but there was something intense in his gaze that made her stomach flip. The tension builds after that lunch. Sebastian's behavior shifted in subtle but noticeable ways. He found more reasons to call Olivia into his office. He requested updates on projects more frequently. When Cameron stopped by her desk, Sebastian would suddenly need something urgently, requiring her immediate attention. One afternoon, Cameron invited her to an art gallery opening that weekend. We could grab dinner first if you are free. I know this great Italian place in Brooklyn. Olivia was about to accept when Sebastian's voice cut through the air like a blade. Miss Bennett, I need you in my office. Now. She excused herself and followed Sebastian inside. He closed the door behind them, something he rarely did, and turned to face her. His blue eyes were stormy. Your personal life is interfering with your work? Olivia blinked in surprise. Excuse me? I have completed every task you have given me ahead of schedule for the past 3 weeks. Walsh has been by your desk 4 times. It's today alone. He had questions about the operations report. That is work-related. Is dinner at an Italian restaurant in Brooklyn also work-related? Olivia felt heat rising to her cheeks, but this time it was anger, not embarrassment. With all due respect, Mr. Hunt, what I do outside of office hours is my personal business. Not when it affects your performance here. My performance has been excellent. And you know it. Olivia stood her ground, meeting his gaze directly. You have not had to ask me to redo a single document in 2 weeks. I have reorganized your entire filing system. I negotiated better rates with 3 of our vendors. If you have a legitimate complaint about my work, I would like to hear it. But do not pretend this is about my performance. Sebastian's jaw clenched. He took a step closer, and Olivia could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy. For a moment, she thought he might actually tell her what was really bothering him. Instead, he turned away and walked to his window. You are dismissed. And I expect the quarterly projections on my desk by 5. Cameron makes his move that evening. Cameron caught Olivia in the lobby as she was leaving. She looked exhausted, and he felt a surge of protectiveness toward her. Rough day? You could say that. Let me take you to dinner. Not the Italian place, if that caused problems. Just somewhere quiet where you can relax for an hour. Olivia wanted to say yes. Cameron was kind and attentive. Everything Sebastian was not. But something held her back. She thought about the look in Sebastian's eyes earlier. That flash of something raw and unguarded before he had hidden it away. Cameron, you are wonderful, but I do not think it would be fair to you. My situation is complicated right now because of Hunt. It was not a question. Cameron sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Look, I am not going to pretend I do not see what is happening. The way he watches you, the way he finds excuses to interrupt whenever we talk. But Olivia, that man is never going to let himself care about anyone. I have worked with him long enough to know that. Do not wait for something that will never happen. I am not waiting for anything. I am just trying to do my job and keep my head down. You deserve better than being someone's assistant for the rest of your career. You are smart and capable. You should be in the boardroom, not fetching coffee for someone who barely acknowledges you exist." His words struck a nerve because they were true. Olivia had dreams once, ambitions beyond being someone's right hand. But life had forced her to be practical, to take the job that paid the bills rather than the one that fulfilled her. "I should go. But thank you, Cameron, for being kind." She left him standing in the lobby and walked out into the evening air. Across the street, in a black car with tinted windows, Sebastian Hunt sat watching. He had seen the entire exchange. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. 3 days after her conversation with Cameron, everything changed. It was a Wednesday evening, and most of the office had emptied hours ago. Olivia was finishing the final revisions on a presentation for a crucial investor meeting scheduled for the next morning. Sebastian had been in back-to-back calls all day. She could see the tension in his shoulders as he paced his office. Phone pressed to his ear at 8:30. His office door flew open. He stood in the doorway, his normally immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and there was a tightness around his eyes that she had never seen before. "The Westfield deal is falling apart. They are threatening to pull out unless we can address their concerns about the merger structure by tomorrow morning. I need a complete analysis of alternative approaches, financial projections for each scenario, and risk assessments." His voice was sharp, but underneath it, Olivia detected something else. Fear. "How much time do we have?" 6 hours until the overseas team needs the information. "They are presenting to Westfield's board at 3 in the morning our time," Olivia looked at the mountain of work ahead and made a decision. She pulled up her calendar and started clearing everything non-essential. "Then I suggest we get started." For the first time since she had known him, Sebastian looked genuinely surprised. "You do not have to stay. I can call in the analysis team. Your analysis team went home 3 hours ago, and this is too sensitive to send to junior staff. Besides, I know this deal better than anyone, except you. I have been managing the documentation for 2 months." Something shifted in Sebastian's expression. He gave a short nod and returned to his office. For the next 4 hours, they worked in focused intensity. Olivia pulled data, ran calculations, and drafted scenarios while Sebastian refined the strategy. Around midnight, he emerged from his office and sat at the chair beside her desk rather than summoning her to him. "Show me what you have so far." They worked side by side, their heads bent over her computer screen. Sebastian explained the complex financial structures, and Olivia caught errors he had missed, suggested alternatives he had not considered. The professional distance that usually existed between them dissolved in the urgency of the crisis. They were simply two people fighting to save a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. At 2 in the morning, they finally sent off the analysis. Sebastian leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. Olivia watched him, seeing the exhaustion etched into his features. For once, he looked human rather than like the cold, untouchable executive everyone feared. "Thank you." His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "I could not have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. But it would have taken twice as long and been half as good." A surprised laugh escaped him, rusty from disuse. "Was that a joke, Miss Bennett?" "Call me Olivia. I think after working until 2 in the morning together, we can drop the formality." Sebastian opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked at her, not as his assistant, but as a person. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. "Olivia, then, why do you do this?" she asked suddenly. The question had been building for months. Why do you push everyone away? You are brilliant at what you do, but you make it impossible for people to work with you. 12 assistants before me, Sebastian. That is not normal. His jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought he would retreat behind his usual cold facade. Instead, he stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights below. "My father built this company from nothing. When he died 5 years ago, everyone expected me to fail. The board, our competitors, even some of our own employees. They thought I was too young, too inexperienced. So I made myself into someone they could not dismiss." Someone who demanded perfection because anything less would give them ammunition to question my leadership. But you have proven yourself 100 times over. The company is more successful now than it ever was under your father. Success is not enough. It never is. There is always someone waiting for you to slip, to show weakness. So I do not let anyone close. I do not give them anything to use against me. Is that why you have been so hostile toward Cameron? Because he was kind to me? Sebastian turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes took her breath away. I have been hostile toward Walsh because watching him flirt with you has been torture. Because every time he made you smile, I wanted to throw him out of my building. Because I know he could offer you everything I cannot. What do you mean? He crossed the room slowly, stopping just inches from her. I am not good at this, Olivia. I do not know how to be the kind of man who takes you to art galleries and Italian restaurants. I do not do casual or easy. Everything with me is complicated and intense, and probably more than you signed up for when you took this job. Olivia's heart was racing. What are you saying? I am saying that for 3 months I have watched you handle everything I threw at you with grace and competence. I have seen you stay late without complaining, fix my mistakes without gloating, stand up to me when I was being unreasonable. I am saying that somewhere between your first day and now, you stopped being just my assistant and became the most important person in my life, and I have no idea what to do about it. The truth revealed. Olivia stared at him, processing his words. All this time she had thought his coldness meant indifference. She had convinced herself that his intense focus on her work meant he saw her as nothing more than an employee. But now, looking into his eyes, she saw the truth. Sebastian Hunt had been terrified of what he felt for her, so he had done what he always did. He had built walls and pushed her away. You are an idiot, she said softly. Sebastian blinked. Excuse me? You heard me? You are brilliant at business, but you are an idiot about people. Do you know how many nights I went home wondering what I had done wrong? How many times I told myself that your approval did not matter, that I was just there for the paycheck. And all this time, you were feeling the same way I was, but were too stubborn to admit it. The same way you were? Hope flickered across his features, transforming his face. I have been half in love with you since the night you actually explained what you wanted instead of just telling me to do it again. When you spent an hour working with me on that presentation, and I finally understood how your mind works. Every day after that got harder because I knew I was falling for someone who would never see me as anything more than his assistant. Sebastian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle, reverent, completely at odds with the harsh way he usually moved through the world. I see you, Olivia. I have always seen you. That was the problem. He kissed her then, soft and questioning at first, then deeper as she responded. 3 months of tension and longing poured into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. This is going to be complicated, Sebastian said. Office relationships, especially between a boss and his assistant, are frowned upon. The board might have concerns. Then we will handle it. Together. She smiled up at him. Besides, I am pretty sure I can find another job if I need to. Apparently, I am good at dealing with difficult executives. You are not leaving. Sebastian's arms tightened around her. We will figure out how to do this right. Maybe you can transfer to a different department. Report to someone else. We will make it work because I am not losing you now that I finally found the courage to tell you how I feel. New beginnings, the next morning. The Westfield deal was saved. The investors were impressed with the analysis and agreed to move forward with the merger. Sebastian presented the findings to the board with Olivia by his side, and for the first time, he publicly acknowledged her contribution. This deal would have fallen apart without Miss Bennett's work last night. She has strategic insights that rival anyone in this room, and it is time we recognize that. After the meeting, Cameron found Olivia in the hallway. He studied her face, taking in the brightness in her eyes, the subtle change in the way she carried herself. You look happy. I am. He nodded slowly. It is Hunt, is not it? You two finally figured it out. How did you know? I have eyes, Olivia. The way he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. The way you defend him, even when he is being impossible. I hoped I might have a chance, but I knew it was always going to be him. He paused, then smiled. I hope he deserves you. And if he ever forgets how lucky he is, you have my number. Thank you, Cameron, for everything. Over the following weeks, Sebastian and Olivia navigated their new relationship carefully. She transferred to the strategy department, reporting to the chief strategy officer instead of Sebastian directly. It removed the ethical concerns about their relationship, keeping her involved in the high-level work she had proven she excelled at. Sebastian had to learn how to be vulnerable, how to let someone see past his carefully constructed walls. It did not come naturally to him. He still had moments where he retreated into coldness, where his fear of weakness made him push her away. But Olivia had learned to read him, to see the fear underneath the ice. She did not let him hide anymore. 6 months later, Sebastian stood in front of the board and announced his engagement. There were raised eyebrows and whispered concerns, but no one could deny that the company had never been stronger. And when Olivia walked into the boardroom to present her analysis of a potential acquisition, she did so as Director of Strategic Planning, not as anyone's assistant. That evening, Sebastian found her in her new office, looking out at the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Do you ever regret it? Taking that job, putting up with me when I was at my worst? Olivia turned in his arms to face him. Not for a single second. You needed someone who would not quit on you. I needed someone who would see past the role I played to who I really was. We saved each other, Sebastian. I love you. The words still did not come easily to him, but he said them with complete sincerity. I love you too. Even when you are being impossible. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Especially when I am being impossible. That is when I need you most. They stood together in the fading light. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. The job that was supposed to be temporary had become permanent. The boss who was supposed to be impossible had become the love of her life. And the assistant who was supposed to quit had instead changed everything. Sometimes. The best stories are the ones where people see past the roles they play to the truth underneath. Where patience and understanding break down walls built from fear. Where love finds a way even in the coldest of places. This was their story, and it was just beginning. The end.